Marcus Reeves had no reason to expect anything unusual when Diane Okafor's assistant asked him to stop by HR on an ordinary Tuesday morning. He walked in still thinking about a shipment schedule he'd been reviewing, sat down across from Diane's desk without any particular concern, and only registered that something was genuinely wrong when he saw her expression. Careful, deliberate, the specific composure of someone about to deliver something serious. "Marcus, I need you to understand the seriousness of what I'm about to tell you," Diane said. "Vanessa Hall has filed a formal complaint regarding Friday night." Marcus's expression shifted from confusion into dawning, cold dread. "A complaint about what, exactly?" "She's alleging she doesn't fully remember the end of the evening, and that she has concerns about what may have happened after you drove her home." Marcus went completely still. "I drove her home because she couldn't drive herself," he said, his voice level despite everything happening beneath the surface. "I walked her to her door. I left. That's the entire night. Nothing else happened." "I believe you're telling me what you remember," Diane said, her tone carrying neither doubt nor easy reassurance. "I need to verify it before I can act on that belief. That's not me questioning you. That's the process, and it protects you as much as it protects her." Marcus Reeves had done the one thing he'd have done for anyone. By Tuesday morning, that single decision was the only thing standing between him and losing everything he'd spent 6 years building. If something about this moment already has your full attention, if you can feel exactly how fast this could go wrong, hit the like button right now. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we tell stories like this one every single week. Drop your country in the comments and let us know where in the world you're watching from. We read every single one. Now, let's go back to Friday night, to understand exactly what actually happened. Friday evening had started, for Marcus, the way most company gatherings did. A hotel ballroom, colleagues mingling with drinks in hand, the specific ordinary texture of a corporate event he attended out of quiet obligation rather than genuine enjoyment. Marcus circulated at the edges, comfortable there, exchanging brief conversations without ever fully engaging the room's louder energy. He noticed Vanessa Hall across the room sometime after 9, drinking more than he'd ever seen her drink at a company function, laughing too loud at things that didn't warrant it. The specific deteriorating quality of someone using alcohol to outrun something she couldn't otherwise escape that particular night. He didn't know, at the time, about the divorce finalized 3 weeks earlier. Didn't know about the folder of medical documents sitting on her kitchen counter at home, related to a health scare involving her mother that had left Vanessa feeling, for months now, genuinely out of control of her own life, in ways almost no one at the office had any idea about. He simply saw a colleague drinking well past her usual limits, unsteady, increasingly unable to manage herself as the evening wore on. By the time the event was winding down, Vanessa could barely stand upright. Marcus, without hesitation or calculation, without weighing whether it might look complicated later, offered to drive her home rather than let her attempt it herself, or gamble on an uncertain rideshare picking up someone this visibly impaired. He got her to her building, walked her to her door, waited until she was inside, confirmed, through the door, that she was stable and had her keys. Then he left. The entire interaction lasted 11 minutes. He drove home, checked on his sleeping son, thanked the babysitter, and went to bed thinking absolutely nothing more of it. Saturday morning, Vanessa woke in her own bed, still fully clothed, disoriented in a way that frightened her immediately. a significant gap in her memory covering the final hour or so of the previous night. The specific, unsettling blankness of genuinely not being able to account for time that had clearly happened to her. She sat up slowly, the weight of everything she'd been carrying for months, pressing down harder than usual in the specific, vulnerable quiet of a hangover morning. The divorce, the fear about her mother, the accumulated exhaustion of a life that had felt, for months now, entirely out of her control. The blank hours terrified her in a way that had almost nothing to do with Marcus specifically, and everything to do with an old, unprocessed fear resurfacing at precisely the worst possible moment. An experience earlier in her life, one she'd never fully discussed with anyone, of being taken advantage of while impaired, a wound she'd never properly closed, and that opened again now with full, disorienting force. She did not call Marcus to ask what had actually happened, did not call a friend who'd been at the event to help her reconstruct the timeline. She sat alone with the fear, until, gradually, it hardened into something that felt, in that specific vulnerable morning, like certainty, rather than speculation. Monday morning, she walked into HR. Vanessa sat across from Diane, her account halting, her fear genuine rather than performed. I don't remember getting inside my apartment. I don't remember him leaving. I just woke up, and I don't know what happened, and I need someone to find out. Diane listened completely, without interrupting, the specific professional discipline of someone who had learned, across 15 years handling exactly this kind of complaint, that people in genuine fear needed to be heard fully before anything else could happen correctly. I'm going to take this seriously, Diane said. That means a real investigation, starting today, moving as quickly as the process allows. It also means I'm not going to draw conclusions before I have facts. Can you tell me anything concrete, Vanessa? Or is this entirely about the memory gap itself? Vanessa was quiet for a moment. It's the gap, she admitted finally. I don't have anything concrete. I just have fear. Then that's exactly what I need to find out, Diane said. What actually happened, separate from what you're afraid might have happened. Those aren't always the same thing, and I won't know which one this is until I look. Diane initiated the investigation immediately. Marcus was called in that same afternoon. Right here, before you see what Diane finds. Subscribe if you haven't already, because the footage that's about to surface is the entire reason this story exists. Hit the bell. Drop your country in the comments. We're reading every single one. Now, watch what a process actually done correctly looks like. Marcus sat in his car in the parking lot long after the meeting had ended, unable to make himself drive home yet. He thought about his son, right now sitting at home with a babysitter, having no idea that his father's entire professional life was currently balanced on the outcome of an investigation into 11 minutes that had genuinely, completely, involved nothing more than a ride home and a walk to a door. He thought, too, about men he'd known personally across his career, colleagues, friends of friends, whose careers hadn't survived accusations that were later found completely baseless, cleared officially, but never fully restored in the way that actually mattered. This wasn't abstract fear for Marcus. It was informed, lived awareness of exactly how much permanent damage an accusation alone could cause, regardless of whether the truth eventually came out. He had no witnesses beyond Vanessa herself, who genuinely didn't remember. He had no camera inside his own memory of those 11 minutes that could somehow prove itself independently. He had only his own account, and the specific, exhausting understanding that his account alone might not be considered sufficient, however true it was. This was the lowest point, not because the investigation was being handled badly. Diane was doing everything correctly. It was the specific, unbearable weight of sitting inside genuine uncertainty, even within a fair process, about whether the truth would actually prove itself in time. Diane, working through the investigation systematically over the following 2 days, requested footage from the hotel's lobby and parking structure cameras. Separately, she checked whether Marcus's vehicle carried a dash cam, standard equipment for his role, since he occasionally used his own car for work-related deliveries. It did. The footage was unambiguous. Marcus helping a visibly impaired Vanessa into his car in the hotel's parking structure, one hand steadying her arm, nothing more. The drive itself entirely uneventful, time-stamped clearly. Marcus walking her to her building's entrance, waiting at the door until she was inside, then returning directly to his car and leaving. The full interaction confirmed, to the second, at 11 minutes. Diane reviewed both sources completely, twice, before calling either party back into her office. "I have footage from both locations," she told Vanessa directly, her voice careful and measured. "I need you to see it before we go any further." Vanessa watched the footage in Diane's office, her hand rising slowly to cover her mouth partway through. Watching, for the first time, the exact 11 minutes her own memory had erased completely, and understanding, fully and without any room left for doubt, exactly how far her fear had carried her from what had actually happened. "I need to speak with him," she said quietly, once the footage ended. "Directly, please." Diane arranged the meeting. Vanessa sat across from Marcus in a small conference room, her earlier composure entirely gone, replaced by something rawer and more genuinely honest than anything she'd shown throughout the entire process. "I was afraid," she said. "I woke up with hours missing, and I let that fear become certainty before I ever tried to actually find out what happened. That's not an excuse. I understand it's not. I could have called you directly. I could have asked before I went to HR. I didn't, and it nearly cost you everything, and I have to live with having done that regardless of how this ends now." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, studying her face, weighing what he was hearing against everything the last 4 days had cost him. "I understand being afraid," he said finally. "I've been afraid plenty of times in my life. What I don't understand is not checking before you acted on it. That's the part that actually happened to me." The company formally cleared Marcus within the week. The investigation's findings documented completely and thoroughly. The specific institutional seriousness of a process that had, in the end, worked exactly as it was supposed to. Diane made certain the resolution wasn't simply filed away quietly either. Marcus's standing was explicitly, formally restored across the relevant parts of the organization, not left to informal rumor and lingering doubt to sort itself out on its own over time. Vanessa faced real consequence for what she'd done. Not termination, but a formal disciplinary record, mandatory retraining on the exact verification process she had failed to follow, and a documented, permanent acknowledgement of the harm caused, regardless of the genuine fear that had produced it. The company did not treat her fear, however real, as sufficient justification for skipping the verification that could have prevented all of it. Weeks later, Marcus sat at his kitchen table at home, his son doing homework across from him, the specific ordinary rhythm of an evening that had very nearly not stayed ordinary at all. His phone buzzed. An email, formal confirmation of his standing fully restored. A note added permanently to his file, documenting the investigation's conclusion clearly and completely in his favor. He read it once, set the phone face down on the table. His son looked up from his homework. "Everything okay, Dad?" "Yeah," Marcus said, and meant it finally, for the first time in weeks. "Everything's okay." He went back to helping with the homework in front of him. The specific, hard-won relief of a man who had done the right thing, had very nearly lost everything for it anyway, and had made it through only because someone in the right position had been willing to do the careful, correct work of finding out what was actually true before deciding what it meant. If Marcus's story stayed with you, if you understand what it means to do the right thing and still have to prove it, share this video right now with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we bring you stories like this one every single week. Hit that like button if this one got you. And drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from? We read every single one, and we want to know who's out there carrying stories like Marcus carried his. Until next time, fear is never evidence, and verifying the truth before you act on it is the responsibility that protects everyone, including yourself.